This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Welcome into the Triple Option. I am Paul Catalina, alongside Pierre Noujaim, who returns from a sojourn at jury duty, which we will talk about in a second. And you may be asking yourself, or Pierre might be saying, Paul, why are you standing over there?
Exactly what I was thinking, 100%.
Yeah. So we have been doing some videos with the Waco Humane Society, Pet Circle Waco, a lot of these things. But Carmen is our friend from the Waco Humane Society. They bring in dogs every other week, and we have them on. We have decided we're going to put the dogs to work, and we're going to do a pick'em contest with Yogi, who is a 7-month-old pit bull. He he got hit by a car. You would not know it, though, by how excited he is, but we're going to pick BYU versus Kansas. Now, Yogi's 7 months old, so I am under no delusions that he's just going to eat one of the treats out of these helmets. But whoever, I will say this right now, because I'm leading in our pick'em, I will change my pick, which is currently BYU, to Kansas if Yogi picks Kansas. Garrett,
Wow.
is that a good idea?
I mean, I think it's fair.
It's fair. Yeah, I'll put some stakes on this. So here we go. Here's BYU, here's Kansas. Both of these helmets have treats in them. Yogi has been, for the last 5 minutes, eagerly awaiting this game. So BYU and Kansas right here. All right, Yogi. Come and get them. Come on, Yogi. Come on, buddy. No. Okay, right there. Here he comes. Here he comes. All right. And it's BYU. He did pick BYU. There you go. All right, look. Yogi, come here. All right, there you go. BYU is his pick right there. So come here, Yogi. Well, he's still eating the treats. So you see Yogi. He is the sweetest guy in the world. Come here, bud. Come here. Oh, come here. Look at it. Okay. Come here, Yogi. Come here. Yogi, here you go. They say don't work with kids and animals. Look, come here, buddy, come here. Come on, here, get on camera. Look, don't be camera shy. Oh, now all of a sudden he is? Come here, buddy, come here. Oh.
There he goes.
There he goes. Hey, buddy, okay. So this is Yogi. He is in foster care right now. He's an excellent, wonderful, very sweet boy. He's played with all of us today. And if you would like to adopt Yogi, just go to the Waco Humane Society's website, look him up, and you can have him. Especially, look, he's a puppy, so if you got kids, like, this is a great dog for kids. Yeah, he is very sweet. I don't want to let him leave, but we have a show to do. But Yogi, thanks for being our first one. I'm going to take you back over to Carmen here. There we go.
Well
All
done,
right.
Yogi.
All right, let me get back in my seat. Carmen, thank you so much. All right, so hold on, my glasses are over here still. All righty. And we're back. All right, Gary, you could switch my mic over now.
I got you. I did.
All right, thank you. All right, here we go. All right, so that was fun. That was a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
Pierre, your thoughts on it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Yogi made the right. Oh, I was hoping that he would go with BYU because I did not want you to have to change your pick to Kansas. I was going to be worried about that for you.
Yeah. Well, my wife might be mad, but the dog picked it.
Right.
The dog picked it. So anyway,
you blame it on the dog. Absolutely, you can blame it on the dog. I mean, what's she going to do? Get mad at Yogi? Oh no,
Yeah.
Maybe we should adopt him. What a terrible idea.
Oh, there we go. Look,
Yeah.
I know I'll wear her down eventually, but
Yeah.
right now she's winning the fight. She's not ready. I say winning the fight. She's just not ready
Sure.
to do this. So Pierre, before we get into the stories of the day, and there's a couple small ones NIL related that I want to get into before we get into our Big Ten topic, and then you and I yelling into the void. You were not here last week because of jury duty.
That's correct.
So first off, we spoke at length last week of different things that you could try. You had an extraordinarily bad idea at first.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Which we will not delve into. Yeah.
It was really bad.
Yeah.
Now
yeah.
I am willing, as an actor, to help you run through what you should have done to get out of it.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Will you be playing the role of the judge, or will you be playing me?
You will be playing the role of the judge.
Okay.
I will be playing the role of you.
Very good.
So you're going to ask me a question. You're the judge or the attorney, whatever. You're going to ask me a question, and I don't know what juror number you were, but look, as an improver, I will improv this for you, and I'll show you. So juror number 10. Okay. All right. Just ask me any question that they might have asked you, and I'll show you how this should have gone down.
Yeah, juror number 10, is there any reason that you believe that you cannot fulfill your civic duties as asked with or without implicit bias?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that question? I was just distracted. I was looking over here at the defendant.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Just one more time.
Yeah. Well, here, focus here. What is there any reason that? For any reason, do you believe that you cannot fulfill your duties here as a juror, with or without implicit bias?
I mean, I'd like to think so. I like to think of myself as a person who can just take in the facts and judge something. But, I mean, have you seen this guy's eyes? And then that's all you say. That's it. You end it right there.
Yeah.
And then they're going to be like, I don't know if we can do this. And here's the thing. They'll have to take you out, because after that there'll be a lot of other jurors who'll be like, no, I also find the defendant very sexually attractive.
Yeah, that was an option.
But you'll be the first one. And look, now maybe as a television figure in Minneapolis, you don't want to do this one.
Right.
I get it, because then people might be like, he's got some weird kinks. That Fox 9 guy. But I don't think it would really get that far. I'll even walk you through what actually happened last week. By the end of Wednesday, there was the jury selection, and the judge, to his credit, nice guy, great, seems like a great individual. He recognized me as we were doing the questionnaires of every juror, and I could tell that he recognized me. And the moment he did, I said to myself, "Oh, that's great. I'm going to get tossed out of here. There's no way I'm going to be staying on." By the end of Wednesday, to my shock and surprise, I was selected, which led me to return Thursday morning and say to the clerk at the court, I would like to have a word with the judge and the lawyers if I could, because and hear me out on this. And so I get in front of them and I say, so I was thinking about this on my drive home yesterday, and obviously, I'm a public figure in the community. If we render a guilty verdict, what is to stop the defendant or anyone associated with the defendant who may come in here and testify on his behalf from recognizing me? And again, if we render a guilty verdict, what is to stop them from retaliation? Because I'm not hard to find. Yeah. Which I thought was a legitimate point. And I could see the judge kind of looks at me and he says, he doesn't say this, but it was basically in the tone of, yeah, that's a point, that's a point, but it's probably not going to happen. So, but they didn't really even say that, because I left them with that thought, and I thought maybe I would get dismissed afterwards. But no, the trial started probably 10 minutes after my concerns, to which no one took seriously. I'm sorry, Pierre. I'm sorry it went down that way for you.
I'm sure the lawyers rolled their eyes at me as well.
Well, you know who ruined that for us, right?
Who is that?
Oprah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oprah sat on a jury, and I remember when that happened, because I was just on the radio at the time, so I knew that, had I sat on a jury, they would just have to figure out where the radio station was.
Right.
They may not remember what I look like or anything like that, but they could be like, well, I know that's downtown above the Wingstop. I'm just going to wait. I'm just going to eat chicken wings and wait to stab this dude, when I get out. So I thought about that. I've not ever been picked for a jury.
This is my second time.
Yeah.
Second time I've served on a criminal case, actually.
And I remember asking a friend of mine who's an attorney, and he was like, well, Oprah messed it up for you.
Oh yeah.
Like, if like Oprah's going to sit on a jury, then no one has a shot to use that anymore, because until Oprah, all of them had.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So like they'd all been like, well, I can't be on a jury. Like
It's, look at me. Me.
I mean, like I can't. I'm Jeff Bridges. I can't be on a jury, man.
Right.
I'm the dude.
Yeah, exactly.
So
100%.
what was the case? What was how did it all shake out?
The case was it was a criminal case. It was a domestic violence case. There was 2 counts of domestic violence, one via strangulation, one intent to inflict bodily harm, or however it's defined. And it's like I said, this is my second time serving on a criminal case, and it's really fascinating to see how it all works and how and it's really tough on the state because they bear the burden of proof.
Yeah,
as everybody, and it really is tough to watch. In a way, it's kind of tough to watch the state try to prove what they need to prove, because we rendered verdicts of not guilty on both counts, and the individual is now walking as a free man. So we just determined there just wasn't enough evidence to support their claims. So
yeah. Well, congratulations for doing your civic duty.
Thank you very much. I feel honored.
Voting and jury duty in the same week.
Oh yeah,
you were like a double like gold star American right now.
Don't nobody talk to me about my patriotic duty. I'm here every single day for this country, day in and day out, no matter my status, my health status.
Yeah. So there you go. Well, I'm glad that's over for you.
Same.
I'm glad it's over. Having had to cover a trial or two in my day for athletes, they are, I wouldn't mind sitting on a jury. I really wouldn't do it. I would do it. But the thing is that you do have to get ready to hear a ton of stuff that you do not want to hear.
Yeah.
Because it's not like on TV, you can be like, oh, those are the people in the box, right?
Right.
But then like when you're in the room and like the victims over here and the perpetrators over here, it's really like you're just like, oh my gosh. Like, it's one of those things that you're like, oh my God, people are terrible. Like that's what you think, and so it's really hard to like, I respect anybody who goes through it and who does it responsibly. And, I know that sometimes juries have people like, oh man, I really want to be in this trial. That's the ones that got to get out. But
in my thought process, I almost looked at the judge and wanted to say, like, couldn't you just put me on a civil case or something? Like this would be a lot easier for me.
Yeah.
A lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah. I just imagine you like on a divorce or something like that, some sort of civil case.
Yeah.
And then like you're out doing your show at, with PJ Fleck, and to be like, Pierre sucks. And then PJ's like, what? And it's like, yeah, that guy cost me $700,000.
I was told, because actually it's funny that you bring that up, because I was unable to do the PJ Fleck show that week because of jury duty. And I heard through the grapevine that there was conversations on set, which included PJ, that they all determined that no matter what case I was on, it was an automatic slam dunk that I was going to render a guilty verdict. So now I'm going to have a little bit of breaking news for them next week.
So even PJ Fleck thinks you're a curmudgeon.
Oh yeah. He was 100% convinced that I was going to be pointing to I might as well just point to him in the courthouse and just say guilty right away.
Well, be like, look, if they're sitting on the right side of the courtroom, they did it. Like, or the left side, they did it. Like that's like I'm that guy. Yeah.
The overwhelming consensus, as I found out later on after the fact. So.
Well, no, I do think people go in like that because there's a lot of people that like, well, they wouldn't be here had they not done anything wrong. You're like, yeah, but like there's a lot that goes into crime. There's a lot of factors.
There's a lot, and one thing that stayed with me, and I think was a little bit applicable in the case that I served on, is just because you render a not guilty verdict doesn't necessarily make you innocent of what may have transpired. It's just the charges against you and what the state is able to prove.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Pierre, let's get into a couple things. We'll start with Bryce Underwood, who is quarterback out of Michigan. Where in Michigan, Garrett, is he from?
It's outside of Detroit.
Just outside Detroit. He is the number one quarterback prospect in the country, I think by pretty much everybody.
Yeah, he's a 5-star plus.
5-star plus.
Wow.
That mean they're not going to a 6-star. They're just adding a plus.
Wow.
On that. So
is streaming? Is this a new streaming service?
Yeah, exactly.
For recruits that I don't know about.
Yeah. So he's a 5-star plus. He has been committed for over a year now, right? To LSU.
It's just over 300 days now.
Yeah, almost a year. Almost a year to LSU. Dave Portnoy, and we've talked about this on the show a little bit, but Dave Portnoy of Barstool Sports, Michigan man, did an interview a couple months ago that said, I have told Sharon Moore that I'm willing to, pay up to help him get a quarterback, and he told me the guy. Well, last week on the show, I think this was on Thursday last week. This was actually on Thursday last week when you weren't here. We talked about this a lot because one of the quarterbacks they had committed is a player named Carter Smith who plays at my high school, at Bishop Aurora High School in Fort Myers. He is by far the best player we've ever had come out of Bishop Aurora, and he's committed to Michigan. By the way, now it's leaning garnet and gold, buddy. It's leaning garnet and gold, and we need all the help we can get. So, I did talk to some friends of mine who know Carter very well. I'm hoping that we eventually get him on the show because I do want to talk about his journey, whether he winds up at FSU or Wisconsin or Penn State or, Grand Valley State. Don't care where he goes. I'm just very interested in the story. And, we have a connection of being, Bishop Row Vikings. So I'm hoping eventually he'll be on the show when he's ready to do an interview or whatever. But so last week, Carter decommitted. In the same 90 minutes, you start hearing about Bryce Underwood getting this massive NIL offer from Michigan. And then you start putting two and two together. And then Garrett, Mr. LSU fan's like, well, I'm not ever going to watch Barstool again. So he was like, well, this is Portnoy doing this.
Absolutely is.
Yeah, so it's Portnoy doing it. Well, now the number is allegedly out. And Bryce Underwood reportedly, according to On3 and Rivals and a couple other recruiting sites, has been offered $10.5 million for 4 years to go to Michigan.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a healthy amount of content that Barstool is producing these days that can get to that number for.
And they just hired John Gruden. Announced that today. Yeah.
Actually, you know what? I did not know that. That's news to me. Barstool hired John Gruden.
Yes.
Wow.
Hopefully his content's going to help drive some of the bright
his game breakdowns though. Gruden's game breakdowns on YouTube are actually very informative for those who have not watched it.
Even though they're a little bit weird.
They agreed. But I mean, if you want to get really into X's and O's, it's a good watch. It's a good watch.
Yeah. Yeah, he's Spider 2 Y banana all over the place.
Yeah, right.
So but $10.5 million, and then on the other side of this, Pierre, here's another one. John Mateer, who is the quarterback at Wazoo, who is absolutely fantastic, super athlete.
Yeah,
it's wild to say that they don't really miss Cam Ward, but they're 7-1, which is a better record than they had when Cam Ward was there. Now, granted, they were playing in the Pac-12, so that's part of it. And now they're, in this Pac-2, dead zone or whatever they are, kind of a, makeshift schedule. Well, I don't know, it's makeshift. It's a good schedule. They had a really good schedule. But they're 7 or 8-1. They've got one loss. It's to Boise State on the year. And he reportedly has a 7-figure offer from a Power 4 school. So these are things that are happening, and I don't know I did a week awards of the week,
right?
Top 5, Pierre, and he won the award for most likely to be tampered with, and I was like 80% kidding, but no, it's clearly happening.
Yeah. No, one of my. It's funny that you bring him up because one of my best friends, who's a gigantic college football fan as well. He and I watched Mateer, slice and dice San Jose State earlier in the season. The 54-52 overtime shootout that game turned out to be, and my buddy, his name is Dave. He kept texting me saying, "Oh, this guy is going to be a college football legend. He's just going to be going down as the wild, cowboy of the West, the way he plays football." And I was watching him play. I was like, this kid's pretty good. Like, he's pretty good.
Yeah.
He could be playing pretty much anywhere else at this point if he keeps playing like this.
Well, I will tell you that Ben Arbuckle is the offensive coordinator there. He's young. He's going to be very sought after. And I would think that you might get a nice little package deal if you hire Ben Arbuckle. So in bringing him down. So we'll see where Ben Arbuckle goes and maybe where John Mateer goes, or John Mateer could stay. We don't know. I mean, it's Ashton Genty stayed, and I can tell you if John Mateer is getting tampered with, Ashton Genty, and we know, like, people offered him 7 figures to leave Boise State, and he's like, no, I'll be cool here. I've got my 7 figures coming in a year. Like, don't worry about that. When I'm a first round pick, I'll be all right. I'll be all right. I'll be good. Plus, he's like the most loyal, like, sweetest guy in the world. We've had him on the show like 2 or 3 times, and that's the thing that just keeps, like, this guy is the most lethal, like, scariest running back in the country, and you're like, so he's like, well, I'm just happy to be here. Like, just the most calm, like, you wouldn't expect him, but you watch him out in the field, and it's like, oh, well, the full moon's out, and he's a werewolf now, man. Yeah, he's just ripping people up. So, but yeah, Ashton Genty said no, because the grass isn't always greener. But I do think when it comes to quarterbacks in particular, I think they get to a point where you just got to go. I remember talking to Carrot, and I were talking to Jake Spavital earlier this year, asking him about, what it was like at Texas State. And he's like, guys would come in, and I'd be like, I mean, I wish you would stay here, but hell, go, man. Like, like, if they're going to, like, we can give you this much money. If they're doubling it or tripling it, I mean, go. Like, I will come to your house and help you fold clothes. Like, let's go. Like, I hate to lose you, but that's the nature of the beast.
Yeah, and it's not just at the professional level. You just demonstrated it's also at the collegiate level now, where players look out for players. Like, they know that good deals for other players could mean better deals or equal deals for themselves, like, down the road, if their play is good enough. So, as long as we keep upping the ante in terms of what these players can get, the business side only helps the players. So I think they're smart enough to understand that too, that, okay, maybe if I'm playing at Texas State, my team might not be as good if we don't keep this guy, but I'm not going to begrudge somebody to go take more money, because what would I do if I was in that situation? I'd probably do the same thing. Yeah.
No, I mean, like, again, that's just how life is. I mean, the thing is now you're just putting it on kids at a little bit of younger age.
Right. And that's the only thing. I shouldn't use the word worry. It's not so much I worry about it, but when you're 18 and 19 and 20 years old and you see $1 million flash before your eyes, don't get us wrong. I know $1 million is a lot of money to a lot of us, but in the grand scheme of things, when they realize, oh, maybe I could have made 1.5, or maybe I could have made 2 somewhere else. The moment you see $1 million flash before your eyes, you just want to grab it with 2 hands and make sure it's in your pocket. Thinking that perhaps if you stay patient, or if you shop around a little bit, who knows, you can get a better deal.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to answer the question, does the Big Ten looks like right now, if the playoff was right now, they're going to get 4 teams. Oregon, Ohio State, Indiana, Penn State. They're going to get 4. Do they deserve 4? Are those 4? Well, we know that 2 of them for sure are, maybe 3. Indiana's got to get their props. They just keep on winning and winning big. But this is just going to be my Penn State argument again. But let's get into, do they deserve 4? I could also make an argument, does the SEC, if they're at, what is the earning your way into this? I want Pierre's opinion on it. We'll talk about that next. 365 Sports. This is the Triple Option.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Welcome back, Paul Catalina. Pierre Noujaim alongside Pierre, fresh out of doing his civic duty last week, and we're very proud of him for doing so.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to be back.
Even though he did try to get out of it. But.
I sure did. I mean, I think that kind of is part of the whole process too, is if you can get yourself out of it as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. I mean, there's nothing more American than shirking what your responsibilities.
Yeah. And then listen, and they said you got to do it, and I showed up. I was there. I'm gonna get the 52 cents a mile from going back and forth, to the courthouse. So yeah, I followed through.
Yeah, well, I'm very proud of you, Pierre, for doing so. All right, your thoughts on, because you cover the Big Ten, you cover one of the more surprising stories actually this year in college football in the Minnesota Golden Gophers. They've got some good wins. I know that they're going to be a bowl team, so that's good for them, especially in this era of it's harder for schools that are already kind of behind it, like Minnesota is, in building up NIL and booster, enthusiasm and all that, but that they are competing and that they are pretty good. They clearly upgraded at quarterback. That's worked out for them. And they look very much like a PJ Fleck team. Maybe not the best PJ Fleck team that we've seen, but they've taken on his personality and they're good. So you've seen the Big Ten. They're going to have 4 teams in the playoff more than likely because Penn State's going to fall ass backwards into it, even though their best one might be, honestly, do they play Minnesota here in a couple weeks, right?
Maybe in 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks. If they beat Minnesota, that might be their best win on the year.
Yeah, it could end up being,
Yeah, so does the Big Ten deserve 4 teams?
That's I was so happy that this was going to be a point of conversation for us here today, because I feel like, obviously there's a big show looming in a couple of weeks between Indiana and Ohio State, and that game is at Ohio State. Now, I think a lot of us, if we were, thinking about that game, a lot of us probably would lean towards Ohio State winning that game, and it would be very likely that Ohio State's only loss of the season would be at Oregon, which no doubt will get them in the playoff, no problem. I don't think anybody should have any issue with that. But if Indiana wins the game, and they run the table the rest of the season, I forget who's last on their schedule in terms of who they have to play after Ohio State. I think it might be Northwestern, but I'm not sure. If Indiana goes undefeated, and that includes a win at Ohio State, they've got to be in. They've got to be in. So then you look at Ohio State and you think to yourself, okay, well, Ohio State lost at Oregon, who's the number 1 team in the country. They lost to undefeated Indiana. We can't leave them out of the top 12, right? I don't think they would be left out of the top 12. So then one way or the other, I think Ohio State is in. If Indiana loses to Ohio State, this is the question I want to ask you. If Indiana loses to Ohio State and that's their only loss, are they left out of the top 12? I don't know if I would have a huge problem if they were left out of the top 12, because their non-conference schedule is about as cupcake as it gets. So, but at the same time too, if Ohio State is your only loss, I could see the argument the other way. I think Indiana's the tricky team. I do want to talk about Penn State, but I want to start with Indiana first.
Look, if Penn State's only losses to Ohio State and Indiana's only losses to Ohio State. Now, granted, Penn State did play West Virginia in the non-con, and they,
and beat them, and beat them.
But West Virginia also is very average. I mean, they're very average. So, and I'm sorry to our West Virginia fans, but they feel that too. They know. But if Penn State only has 1 loss and Indiana only has 1 loss, then if Penn State's going in, Indiana has to go in, because the difference in their strength of schedules is not that much. I think my problem with Penn State is they seem to be one of these teams that, history is only applied to them in a good way. They're Penn State.
Right.
What's James Franklin's great history at Penn State?
Right.
Of being 10-2 all the time, and the 2 are always teams that are, Ohio State and Michigan, or Ohio State and the Big Ten flavor of the month, right?
Yeah.
Like the hot team of the Big Ten, or a non-conference game against a team that's Ohio State caliber. Like that's what his legacy is. They're not paying attention to that. Indiana, getting punished for the non-conference schedule, especially considering some of the other teams that'll be in there with bad non-conference schedules, is laughable to me.
Yeah, and that kind of leads me into the conversation of Penn State. And a serious question here. Do we really see much of a difference in terms of resume and in terms of signature wins, if you will? What is the difference right now between Penn State and Texas? I don't see a lot of difference in terms of when you go down the list of teams that they beat, the non-conference opponents. I know that Texas blew the doors off Colorado State in the opener, and Colorado State has turned themselves into a pretty decent team. They've won, I believe, 5 in a row, if I'm not mistaken. But again, an average team, if you will. People don't seem to have a problem automatically putting Texas up there. So why are we having the same hesitation with Penn State? I kind of view it. Penn State and Texas right now to me are the Spider-Man meme. They're pointing at each other. It's like, wait, I kind of feel this is the same conversation with both of these teams. I
will say this: Penn State had a cupcake schedule that we all saw being a cupcake schedule. Texas, everybody thought they got kind of a good
with Michigan.
It's not their fault that Michigan and Florida and Oklahoma suck. It's not their fault. That happens. Now Georgia doesn't, A&M doesn't, so those are bonuses for them. But right now their best win is Vanderbilt,
right?
Which sucks for Texas to have that as the thing. And here I am defending the Longhorns, so mark it down. But that one. Because I remember that the same argument was made in 2014 against Florida State of, they're playing all these games that are fast and loose against 500 teams, but their schedule was crazy. Their non-conference schedule, they had Oklahoma State and Notre Dame, and they had big-time games, and then they had Clemson on the schedule, they had Miami on the schedule, they had Florida on the schedule, and all those teams wound up being average or less than. Well, it wasn't FSU's fault that they were. I don't like – Texas, for all the bad things I'll ever say about them, which are legion, there is I will never say that they short it on scheduling. It's just some years you don't get those quality wins. Now, has Texas, since the SEC season started, had a whole win? No.
Right.
But so to your point, there you go.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong in terms of Texas. I know they've got Arkansas, Kentucky, and at A&M to end the season. I know that's still on the horizon. If they win out, of course. I mean, I'm not going to make any argument whatsoever that they shouldn't be in, and not only in the top 12, but in the top 4. I'm not going to make any debate about that. I'm just talking about to this point right now where we stand. I mean, Miami is another team too where that Miami could easily have 3 losses on the season easily. Yeah. It's like
no, 4.
4. I mean, even 4.
Cal,
the Cal game, the Virginia Tech,
and Louisville.
Yeah, there you have it. I mean, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I obviously has gotten a little bit lucky at times as well. I don't know that they've overly impressed me. So when it comes to Indiana and Penn State, I don't know. Right now, I'm having a hard time keeping both of them out. I'm having a hard Indiana. I could kind of go either way. If Penn State wins out, I think you just, like you were kind of alluding to earlier, Paul, it's kind of like, well, you shrug your shoulders and you're like, yeah, I mean, I guess you went 11-1 in your schedule and you only play who's on your schedule, but do we really think you're a threat? No. So I guess I reluctantly am letting you in. So
yeah,
that's kind of how I feel about Penn State.
Yeah, no, I get it. Like I just think that if we're gonna benefit, like your history is your history. I described it the other day on the show as this is the George Washington theorem to me. Okay, George Washington was the founding father of our country. He was our first president. He did a lot of good things, but there's also the slavery thing, right? Yeah, so. Right. You have to look at everybody as the whole pie. You can't just be like, well, and look, and I get it. It was a product of the time. He grew up in it. It was never told to him that he was wrong, but also, there should be a point where, if you're a religious person and then you're seeing that, you're going like, I don't know if these two ideologies jive, right? Which he claimed to be, right? So there's that. Like, you have those things, and I try not to put today's mindset on guys in the 1700s.
The revisionist history that people like to do. Yeah.
No, I don't like to do that. That's not good, but it is part of it. Like, everybody's got pockmarks, to put it mild, scars, to put it mildly. So what happens with some of these big brands in college football is they're given historical credit, which in any given year shouldn't matter what happened a year ago. You should be talking about right now, like who's the best team right now. But because of our inherent biases as human beings, you kind of have these things where you get good credit for good historical behavior as where like anything bad is not applied to you. So Penn State, is going to be a great place to host a playoff game at night in Happy Valley.
No doubt.
Penn State's going to be this, and Penn State has this history, and it's a brand name, and blah, 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 blah. All right, none of that matters. If you're talking about history, you can't just take out the fact that when they have those big games in Happy Valley at night, well, guess what happens to Penn State? They lose.
Yeah.
So,
more often than not than what we've seen in the James Franklin era.
He's only won one of them.
Yeah.
One. So what history, like when we're talking about history, you have to talk about all of it. You have to talk about all of it. Warts and all. Warts and all. That's how it is, because you don't get a full picture unless you admit those things. Like,
right.
Unless you say that. And so there'll be a team without the kind of history that will be close to this that won't get in. And the reason will be, well, historically, like, and you're like, no, F your history. Like, no. What the history the history of every season starts when the first game is played and it ends when the last game is played.
Agreed.
Before the playoff. It does not matter what guys who are not even on the team anymore did. They're gone. And they'll tell you that it's just about this year. It's just about this year. But, it's not. And that's what needs to be fixed. And that's where, of all the teams in this thing, the one who's going to get the biggest bump from history, should they stay with one loss, is going to be Penn State. Yeah. They're going to wind up likely hosting a playoff game in Happy Valley.
Right.
And likely, based on what happens when they play what we would call now playoff caliber teams, they're going to lose a playoff game in Happy Valley.
The interesting thing for me is in 2 weeks when Penn State comes to town here, Minnesota's coming off of a big letdown loss at Rutgers last week, which really upset me because I thought that probably is going to cost me a bowl trip to Tampa or Orlando, which I would absolutely love in late December. I would love to get out of here for a couple of days. But I'm sitting here thinking to myself, because when you go down the list, all the fans and all the media, we all do this at the beginning of the season, especially when you go down the schedule and you're like, well, that's a win and that's a loss and blah, blah, blah. I'm sitting here, I'm thinking to myself, well, why couldn't Minnesota beat Penn State in a couple of weeks? I don't see, I'm not going to pick them to win, but at the same time, I shouldn't be all that surprised if Minnesota does win that game. And if they do, that may take care of this whole debate in and of itself, no problem if Penn State ends up losing in Minnesota.
Yeah. No, it might. Look, I think if Penn State loses again, then the Big Ten's getting 3 teams.
Yeah.
And Indiana really needs them to lose again if they lose to Ohio State.
Correct.
But I don't know. Well, here's another question. If Ohio State loses to Indiana, will they be punished as much for that loss as somebody not named Ohio State?
That's why, I kind of led off with it. I don't know. That's a great question. It's a fun little debate
we're sitting here assuming that Indiana's just going to be like, well, 11 wins is enough. We've never, this is the first time we've ever won 10, or not the first time, but the first time that anyone who's alive right now can remember us winning 10 games. This is like, we're happy with that. No. Like, Indiana could very well win that game. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, but, we'll see.
And that's why I started by saying, with Indiana, if they finish 11-1 and their sole loss is to Ohio State, it's all of a sudden I feel like I'm in election season again. I have two sides of an argument here that I could be persuaded either way in terms of why they shouldn't be let into the college football playoff based on that one loss alone, given their entire track record. Like you said, the entire scope of the history and the entire scope of the season. So I could go either way on Indiana.
Yeah. I mean, again, we'll see, and we'll see. We will absolutely see.
Right.
I think it's fascinating to talk about. We're gonna take a break here, and we've got to end like a little 5 minutes early. We've got an interview to do like right after the show, Pierre. So in the next segment, Paul and Pierre yell into the void about the hapless state of their NFL teams. Yesterday, Steven Simcox was on the show and went on an absolutely epic rant about he's a TCU grad and how SMU is a playoff contender in their first year in a power conference. He is not taking it well. So I think I really would enjoy having the co-hosts, show their pain a little bit. I enjoy it. It was hilarious with Steven. It's going to be great with you, especially given the fact that the Dolphins are getting healthy and they didn't win this week, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter. Like, all these guys are coming back and getting healthier, playing through injuries. It doesn't matter. We'll talk about that next. This is the Triple Option on 365 Sports.
Fantasy Sports EVO, the next evolution of daily fantasy sports. Tired of traditional fantasy sports where you spend hours upon hours studying individual players? EVO's unique team-based platform makes it easier than ever for all sports fans to play. No need to know individual players. Just choose your contest, select your teams, and enjoy the game. Whether you access our website from a desktop, mobile device, or the app, the experience is the same. EVO is for all sports fans. Join Fantasy Sports EVO and experience the evolution.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Welcome back, Paul Catalina and Pierre Noujaim. I, as many of you know, am a Cowboys fan, and have been broken through the years. Pierre, you've never had to cover the Dolphins.
No, I have never had it. Thank goodness. They're lucky. They should be counting their blessings. I never had to cover that team.
Look, covering your favorite childhood team, which is why I will never, if somebody said, would you like to be in the locker room with the Red Sox or even FSU? Even FSU, I'd be like, you know what? I need to keep a wall up because the Cowboys have broken me. Mm-hmm. And when you're a fan, you have that optimism of, I think it can get better if only these things happen. But when you know how the organization works at a fundamental level, and you've seen it, and just something it's just things that you see that you wouldn't normally. Of course, if you take a tour of the friggin' Star, you probably get a chance to see it. You're just not there that long. But if you see it over and over again, you're like, well, this is how it is. I'm like, I don't enter any year with any optimism at all. And when I was going to Cowboys training camp every year, I'd come back here and you'd be like, and people would say, Paul, are the Cowboys going to be any good? I'm like, all I know is that they can beat the Cowboys. That's it.
Yeah.
I've only seen them play the Cowboys.
Yeah.
And even then, not at full speed, really. So they can beat themselves. That's all I know.
I had a similar experience in my 2 years in Sacramento covering the Kings. I was definitely had a very similar experience when you kind of get a little bit of a glimpse of how the sausage is made. Mm-hmm. You kind of not that has affected my fandom. It hasn't, but at the same time too, I realize it made me probably, nobody admitted this to me, but I was probably an unpopular media figure for 2 years there because of how, honest I was about their misfortunes. So when you're a little too close to it, you like to think it doesn't affect you, or it doesn't affect how you go about your business from a professional standpoint but it creeps in there. It does. It's unavoidable.
No, it's true. I mean, I remember going to cover a game that the Cowboys played against the Bears on a Monday night.
Yeah.
And
in Dallas or Chicago? In Dallas.
In Dallas.
I think I might know which game this is, actually.
It was the game where Brandon Marshall ate the Cowboys for lunch.
Yes.
I mean, absolutely. And the thing is, when there's another national fan base like the Steelers, the Bears, the Packers, the Niners, that have fans everywhere, the Raiders.
Yeah.
It's not the case when they play like the Ravens or the Bengals. I mean, there's always fans from other teams there.
Sure.
But if you have those teams that just have, they're my favorite team because my dad loved Terry Bradshaw, or, my family's from Chicago and now I live here in Dallas, so I'm a Bears fan. There were just tons of, I saw more Brian Urlacher jerseys than Tony Romo jerseys that night.
Yeah.
And they absolutely drilled him. And, what's his name? His name was Carr. Brandon Carr. Brandon Carr was the cornerback who got absolutely destroyed by Brandon Marshall all night long. And you do have to feel bad for him. And we were going to the locker room after we talked to Jerry Jones, and which is a thing in and of itself. And we walked to we're walking over, and I see Jerry made a beeline, and I simultaneously respected this about Jerry and then was mad at him for it. Brandon Carr was, and now that I'm outside the situation, I understand why he did it, and he should have done it. Brandon Carr was just heartbroken about how badly he'd gotten beaten. And then you also know that, you start thinking, the next year, Brandon Carr wasn't with the team, and he was, kind of bounced around for a little bit before he ultimately retired. That was one of those games where it might hit you that, I don't know if I can do this the same way I did. Because Brandon Carr was a really good player for a good number of years in the league, but Brandon Marshall destroyed. I mean, he could not do anything on him all night long.
Yeah.
And looking back at it now, outside the emotions of the situation, I'm like, oh, well, yeah. I mean, everybody has to deal with their age and, moving on in periods of the life. And especially when you're a professional athlete, it has to hit you in a different way, than it does a normal person. But I watched Jerry Jones go over and give him a hug and give him a little pep talk. And the fan part of me was like, no.
Yeah.
No.
Cut him on the spot.
Yeah. You know what? Rip his shoulder pads off right now.
Yeah.
Give me his helmet. We will burn it. That was how I felt in my part of my brain. And then I was like, well, let me go over here and talk to Tyron Smith. No, I'm not going to talk to Tyron Smith. He looks mad. Let's go over and talk to somebody. And so that's what I did. But I remember thinking the emotional part of it. And then when I was driving home that night, I thought, well, that wasn't very professional of me to have those thoughts. And I think the Cowboys have now poisoned my brain a little bit trying to get this back. Now, I am very good at criticizing them and not going overboard with it. I'm not now the angry dude. I just will tell you how it is. So I'll just tell you right now, this is the roughest season doing what I do and being a fan of that team ever, because Jerry Jones has always been the best owner and the worst GM. Well, now he's not really that good of an owner. And that's where it starts to be this is hard to watch because I don't know the decisions are being made are really flowing through Jerry at full speed anymore. Because you can tell he's getting angry in places where before he would just be You
remember the radio spat that he had earlier in the season with the radio host?
Sean and Bobby and RJ. Friends of ours. Yeah.
When I saw that, I'm not going to lie, that raised my eyebrows. I was like, oh, that's, for as much heat as Jerry and the Cowboys take, not only from local media, but from national media as well, to his credit, Jerry takes it all with a grain of salt. He doesn't miss a beat. He's stride for stride in his thought process. Emotionally, he seems very in check with everything that's going on, despite repeated protests from media and fans to fire coaches or bench quarterbacks. Jerry seems very even keeled, which has I've always noticed, and it surprised me to an extent.
Yeah.
But when that happened earlier this year, I think you're onto something. That was my first indication of, it's starting to get to him, or there's a crack in the armor here from Jerry. I don't know how this is going to play out.
Yeah, no, I mean that's how I felt. So for you, Mr. Dolphins fan,
yeah,
who's had to wait even longer.
Yes,
here's the thing, in your lifetime, you have never experienced a Dolphins Super Bowl win.
Correct.
And for a large chunk of your life now, you have not experienced a Dolphins postseason win.
I remember where I was and who they were playing. The last time they got a playoff victory, was in the year 2000. They were hosting the Colts. Lamar Miller was the star. Or no, sorry, not Lamar Miller. Who was their running back? Now it's escaping me. But I do remember Jay Fiedler was the quarterback. They beat the Colts in overtime. And then
Cecil Collins.
He went to jail.
Okay.
But it was what was his name? He had like 2 good years with Jay Fiedler. It wasn't Lamar Miller. Lamar Miller was 10 or 6, 7, 8 years ago. It'll come to me. Why do I keep thinking Lamar?
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
No, he was a first round bust disaster of a pick. But either way, not only have I not seen this team in the Super Bowl, I've never even seen them make it to an AFC championship game in terms of my fandom. The last time that happened, I believe, was 92 when they lost to Buffalo. And that was before I was really I was a fan, but I wasn't really exactly conscious of it at the time. So what I would like, here's my issue with this, because I think Chris Greer's tenure and this is the other problem with Stephen Ross. Stephen Ross as an owner is like you said about Gary.
Lamar Smith, by the way.
That's who it is. Lamar Smith. Lamar Smith, who had a year, 1 or 2 good years for the Dolphins that year. I think he might have had 200 yards in that game against the Colts in that playoff game, if I'm not mistaken. But I digress. Stephen Ross is the kind of owner I tell fans all the time, this is the kind of owner you want. A guy who's got a big pocketbook and for the most part steps out of the way and just signs the checks. You listen to your people, you say, we want this guy or that guy. Guess what? We'll make it happen. I'll sign the check. But Chris Grier has run the credit card one too many times, and the bill came due this offseason. And when they were stripped of some talent in the offseason, I said to myself, this team is not going to win more than 9 games at best this season. And now, remember a few weeks ago when they were sitting there 2-4, I was on this very show, and I said, make no mistake about it, their season is over. And then at 2-6, when I see some people saying, this team is capable of making a run into the postseason, I said, stop it. Stop it right now. I mean, and I want the entire training staff of this team, the strength and conditioning coaches, I want them all fired. Everyone gets hurt at every single week, every single practice. Somebody is hurt. Somebody's out for the season. Somebody's out for multiple weeks. I mean, Zach Sealer had his orbital bone broken in practice a couple of weeks ago, missed a couple of games. How in the world does this happen? Everybody on this team is a walking chandelier, and it's only a matter of time before one of them is out again for the rest of the season. We just lost Austin Jackson, starting right tackle for the rest of the season. Bradley Chubb hasn't made it back from his torn ACL yet. Not that I blame him. Rehab all you need. But, I mean, Javon Holland, in and out of the lineup, concussion, hand injury. Tyreek Hill revealed that he's got a torn ligament in his wrist that happened in training camp. Where's the strength and conditioning team for this team? Everybody's dropping like flies. Fire the whole staff.
This is exactly what I wanted. And I knew, look, when Steven had his rant yesterday, I said, well, I know where a well of rant is, and it's Pierre for sure.
Yeah.
Actually, we're gonna create his own podcast called Pierre's Well of Rants.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be Pierre. Did you ever watch Brockmire?
Oh, I didn't watch. I didn't get a chance to watch the show, but I'm well aware of the character and everything. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. Watch it.
Yeah.
You'll wind up binging it. I know you'll love it. But there's a part of it where he's living in New Orleans and he's like a AAA baseball announcer, and he's making a lot of money doing a podcast where he gets drunk and high, and then somebody gives him a topic, and then he just talks until the end of the story. And so it starts out one way, and then, of course, it cuts away and comes back, and he's telling a completely different story. It's
Right.
like, so there were me and Kirstie Alley and the rest of the Veronica's Closet Riders that left. He's just like doing that. But that's the podcast I want you to do.
Yeah.
Is I'm just gonna slide you, a bit of your favorite beverage.
Yeah.
And then we're going to get in the audience, and they're going to shout out a topic, and then you're just going to go on a rant about it.
I feel for every prospective media business owner, too, when they watch that podcast, I would like to plead and negotiate that I get immunity from anything that I say on that podcast, because I can go in a million different directions.
Yeah. No, I absolutely know that. Like, well, here's the thing. I would be there with you every step of the way.
I know you would.
We're only gonna do it live.
Yeah.
We're not gonna do it in a studio. It's gonna be in front of an audience so that the audience can shout things out. And then if you start to go, I'm gonna have like a water pistol or something where I'll just spray you a little bit, and then you be like, okay, sorry.
Just like a cat. Just like a cat approaching the Christmas tree.
Yeah, that's what we'll do. And then we'll be like, hey, while Pierre cools down before the next topic, let's talk to you about our sponsor. And then we do a sponsor read. Like I could say, welcome to our newest sponsor, and this is true. Our newest sponsor here at 365 Sports and Triple Option, Best Buy.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yes.
They have headquarters. They've got a big old office here in town in Minneapolis.
Yeah, so they're one of our many sponsors, but Best Buy has come aboard. So
Fantastic.
Welcome aboard to Best Buy. It's the holiday season.
Absolutely.
You're going to buy a TV anyway. You know it. Do it at Best Buy. So they got great deals. So anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there, but that's what we would do. Be like, all right, while Pierre cools down, let me tell you about the great deals at Best Buy on a Samsung 85-inch TV. You can get for $999.99 right now. And then Pierre comes back and somebody's like, the Sacramento Kings, and it's like, all right, well, here we go.
Yeah. All buckle up, all aboard the train. I was distracted for a moment by one of your sponsors in the background. I saw Rudy's up there on the television screen.
Rudy's, yeah.
And I thought to myself, oh man, I could go for some Rudy's right now. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, you guys don't get the queue up there.
Oh, dude, I would love to have some Rudy's up here. I would if there's an opportunity to invest in a franchise, if Rudy's had a random spot in the suburbs of Minnesota, I am buying in. I am 100% buying into that franchise.
I knew you would. I know you would, Pierre.
100%.
Well, that's going to do it for us, Pierre. Thank you so much. Today on the big show, we've got a couple really cool guests. Garrett, I've got it now. Matt McChesney, 0 to 60 Buffs. Rod Babers from the Horn in Austin. We'll have the Big 12 Bowlsmead pod. Craig's Off the Radar, My Top 5. And Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com. Tries to make sense of the nonsense. This is the Triple Option with Paul Catalina and Pierre Noujaim. See you in an hour, everybody.